My dog walker warned me about my neighbor. I thought it wasn't that serious till she became Unhinged Full Story. I live in a mid-sized apartment complex in the suburbs, the kind of place that tries really hard to feel like a community. There's a pool no one uses, a half-broken grill area, and a little courtyard where all the dog owners gather in the morning. You can tell what time it is just by which neighbor is walking which dog. At 7:30 every morning there's a whole parade, people in slippers and messy buns, clutching mugs of coffee pretending we're functional adults. We nod, smile, sometimes mutter morning, but we all know each other's pets' names better than each other's name. That's where I met Allison about a year ago. She moved into the unit 2 doors down from mine, one of those corner apartments with a tiny balcony covered in plants. The first time I saw her, she was kneeling on her patio, watering a row of succulents and humming softly. I remember thinking she looked like she belonged in one of those lifestyle magazines, calm, composed, all soft colors and gentle energy. She introduced herself one morning when our dogs sniffed each other's tails. Her dog, a small French bulldog named Bean, barked once and sneezed. My golden retriever, Milo, wagged his tail like he'd just met his soulmate. From then on we started walking together. It happened naturally. We'd leave our apartments at the same time, fall into step, make small talk. She had that voice, low, smooth, like a yoga teacher. Even when she complained about traffic or her work, she sounded peaceful. She was easy to be around. At the time, I was lonely. I'd just switched to remote work after my company downsized the office. My best friend had moved out of state and my social life mostly consisted of group chats and delivery drivers, so Allison kind of slid into that gap. We'd walk our dogs in the evenings, then grab smoothies or sit on her balcony. She was funny in a quiet way, observant, detail-oriented. Soon we were texting daily, random memes, dog photos, little updates. I thought of her as one of those comfort friends, not dramatic, not demanding, just easy. Or at least, she seemed that way. Everything shifted the year spring when I broke my wrist. It was a stupid accident. I slipped on wet stairs carrying groceries, landed wrong. It was my dominant hand too, which made everything harder, especially walking Milo, so I hired Nick, a dog walker several people in the complex used. He was friendly, reliable, in his 30s, and he clearly loved animals. He'd text me little updates like Milo chased a butterfly today, 10 out of 10 excitement level. It made me smile during a pretty isolating few weeks. About 2 weeks later Nick texted asking if I'd be home the next day. I said sure, assuming it was about rescheduling or payment. When he showed up, he looked uneasy. He kept glancing down the hallway like he was checking who might be listening. Then he exhaled and said quietly, "Look, I don't want to make things weird, but I think you should be careful around your neighbor Allison, right?" I remember laughing because it sounded absurd. Careful? Why? He rubbed the back of his neck. "She's been asking me a lot of questions about you, like specific questions, where you work, when you're home, what routes I take with Milo, even whether you ever go away overnight." I frowned. Maybe she's just making conversation. He shrugged, still uncomfortable. That's what I thought at first, but it kept happening. She'd stop me mid-walk, like, "Oh, does she lock her balcony door when she's out, or does she ever meet anyone when you walk Milo?" It started to feel like surveillance. He gave a nervous laugh and said maybe I'm overreacting, but it didn't sit right. "Just trust your gut, okay?" He left soon after, and I stood there holding Milo's leash, my heart doing this weird stutter thing. Allison? Asking about me, why? I spent the next few days trying to talk myself down. Allison wasn't creepy, she was meticulous. That's the word I kept using. She double-checked plans, reminded me of appointments, noticed every small change. Once she'd texted me a photo of my doormat slightly crooked and said, "Did someone move this? Just checking." At the time, I found it sweet, like she cared. Looking back, it was the first red flag. Still, I told myself Nick misunderstood. Maybe Allison was just making small talk because she was awkward. Not everyone knows how to connect. Then small things started happening. One night, I came home from physical therapy to find a post-it stuck to my door. "Heard Milo barking a lot today. Everything okay?" It looked innocent, almost friendly, except it wasn't taped to the outside. It was inside the doorframe, like someone had pushed it through the crack and then reached in to stick it. That detail haunted me more than the message. How long had she stood there? A few days later, we ran into each other near the mailboxes. She was wearing leggings and a sweatshirt, Bean in her arm like a baby. She smiled like nothing had changed. "Hey, how's the wrist? I saw Nick walking Milo earlier." Her tone was casual, but her eyes flicked toward my door. I forced a smile and said, "Better, thanks." She hesitated, then said, "I was worried when I heard him barking yesterday. Thought maybe you were out too long." Something about that phrasing, "out too long," made my skin crawl. I mumbled something about the physical therapist running late and hurried back upstairs. A week later, I mentioned offhand that I might visit my sister that weekend. When I got back, plans canceled last minute. Allison was outside again. "I figured you came home early," she said cheerfully. "Your lights came on Friday night." I hadn't told her I changed plans. I remember standing there, smiling stiffly while my brain tried to make sense of it. Why was she watching my lights? soon things escalated with my packages. I'd been ordering more lately: groceries, wrist brace replacements, random stuff, but suddenly half my deliveries were picked up before I even got home. I complained to the front desk and they said my neighbor Allison had been collecting them to help out. She never told me. I texted her, trying to stay polite. "Hey, thanks so much for helping with the packages, but please don't worry about it anymore. I've got it covered." She replied instantly, "Oh, I only did it because I didn't want anyone to steal them. I care about you and Milo, but if you want space I totally understand." That phrase about space, like she was the one giving me permission. After that she went quiet. No more walks, no casual chats. She'd pass me in the courtyard and look straight through me. Nick mentioned she canceled her dog walking service the same week. Since then, the atmosphere in the hallway changed. The air feels heavier when I walk past her door. Sometimes I hear faint music from her apartment, instrumental, meditative stuff, and it feels almost mocking, like a soundtrack to my unease. I keep thinking about what Nick said. Did he sense something I ignored, or did I misread everything? There's this guilt that gnaws at me. What if she was just lonely? I know how that feels. Maybe she overstepped because she wanted connection, but then I remember the post-its inside my door. That one image won't leave my head. People underestimate how small consistent weirdness can erode your peace. It's not like a big dramatic betrayal you can point to. It's 100 subtle moments that make you doubt your own perception, like when I'd hear faint footsteps outside my door around midnight, or when Milo would start barking at the wall we share, or how once I found one of his toys, a squeaky tennis ball, in the hallway near her door. I don't remember dropping it there. It's all plausible, right? Coincidence, curiosity, coincidence. Again, but when you start stacking them together, it forms a pattern you can't ignore. Sometimes I'll be brushing my teeth at night and catch a shadow in the peephole, or I'll come home and smell her perfume, lavender, and something herbal faintly near my door, like she's just been there. I changed my locks and started keeping the chain latch closed even when I'm home. It makes me feel paranoid, but also safer. I think the part that hurts most is that I really did like her. There's something intimate about friendship formed in mundane moments, the daily walks, the small talk, the quiet companionship. You start to believe the normalcy itself is proof of safety. That's why Nick's warning shook me, because it forced me to admit that maybe underneath all the calm and kindness there was something else, something watchful. She once unexpectedly knocked on my door one evening after about 2 months of not speaking to me, holding a bag of dog treats. I hesitated before opening. "Hey," she said, smiling a little too wide. "I bought these for Bean, but she didn't like them." Milo might. I thanked her but didn't invite her in. She stood there still smiling, eyes flicking past me into the apartment. "It's so cozy in there. You've got good lighting." It felt like a statement, not a compliment. After that day, she started texting me again, but I stopped responding to her texts altogether. She sent a few short ones: "Hope you're okay, miss our walks," and then nothing. Every time I pass her door I feel this weird mix of relief and guilt, like ending a friendship that never fully started. Sometimes I think about messaging her just to clear the air, but then I picture the post-it again, the fake concern written in neat handwriting. It's strange how quickly trust can rot. I used to believe that bad people came with warning signs, obvious ones, raised voices, cruelty, chaos, but sometimes it's the calm ones who unsettle you the most, the ones who seem too composed, too attentive. There's a saying my grandmother used to repeat: when someone shows you their attention is not about care, it's about control. Believe them. It's taken me months to understand that's what this was, not friendship, control disguised as concern. On an ordinary gray Tuesday evening, I'd just gotten back from working at a nearby cafe, wrist finally healed, Milo bouncing around, tail thumping against my leg, when I noticed something taped to my door. Another note, except this time it wasn't handwritten. It was printed, a formal-looking paper with the apartment complex's logo at the top. Notice: we received a complaint regarding excessive barking and suspected neglect of a pet. Please contact the office immediately. My stomach dropped. For a moment I thought it had to be a mistake. Milo barked. Yes, every dog does, but neglected. The word alone made my throat tighten. He was spoiled. He had his own blanket on the couch, his favorite squeaky toy that I'd replaced 3 times, a dog walker who came twice a day when I was at work. Neglect was the last word anyone could use about him. I reread the notice twice before it really sank in. Then I called the leasing office right away. The receptionist's voice was polite but detached. She said the complaint was anonymous, but several residents had mentioned hearing distressing sounds coming from my apartment. Several residents. That phrase echoed in my head like a bell. I lived in a small building, 10 units per floor. Everyone knew everyone by sight, even if not by name. The only person I hadn't spoken to in weeks was Allison. Still, I didn't want to assume. I asked the people on both sides of me if they'd heard Milo barking excessively. Both said no. One of them even laughed. If anything, that dog's too happy. He's loud, but not sad loud. But the one person I couldn't ask, the one who'd once been my closest neighborly friend, was Allison. The next morning, I caught her in the hallway. She was crouched down, clipping Bean's little harness on, humming something under her breath. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to let it go, but curiosity won. "Hey, Allison, she turned, smiled, that perfectly calm yoga teacher voice sliding in like nothing had happened. Hey you, how's the wrist? Better, I said. Actually, I wanted to ask if you've heard Milo barking a lot lately. Something flickered across her face, a quick tightening, almost like she wasn't expecting that question. Then she smiled again, just a little too smoothly. Oh, maybe once or twice? But you know dogs. I'm sure it's fine, too rehearsed. I nodded, pretending to accept it, but something in my gut twisted. When she turned to leave, I caught a faint whiff of her perfume, lavender and vanilla, the same one that used to make me feel relaxed. Now, it just made me uneasy. 2 days later, another notice appeared. This one came with a photo attached, a blurry shot of Milo sitting by the window. The caption, "Dog left unattended for long periods, appears distressed." The photo was clearly taken from outside, from ground level. Someone had stood in the courtyard and zoomed in on my window. My hands started shaking. That was the moment everything clicked. This wasn't just passive-aggressive, this was intentional, targeted. I snapped a photo of the complaint myself and marched straight to the leasing office. The manager, Mr. Hughes, a practical, older man with graying hair, looked at me over his glasses. "We can't disclose who filed the report, I'm afraid," he said. "Tenant privacy." I took a deep breath. Privacy doesn't cover harassment. Someone took a photo of my window from outside. That's not a complaint, that's stalking. His expression changed. The bureaucratic mask slipped for a second. "Wait," he said slowly. "Photos?" "Yes," I said, holding up my phone. "Through my window you can see the reflection of the courtyard railings." He nodded, finally serious. "We'll look into it. Leave me a copy of everything you have." I left the office shaking, anger mixing with something colder, because this wasn't just about the complaints anymore. This was about control. Nick's voice from months earlier came back to me. "She's been asking a lot of questions about you, like where you walk Milo, what time you're home." At the time I thought he was exaggerating. Now I wished I'd listened harder. That night I sat on the couch with Milo asleep beside me and opened my phone's security app. I'd installed a doorbell camera 3 weeks ago, after one of my packages went missing. Most nights, the footage was boring: people walking by, delivery drivers, sometimes kids playing tag in the hall. But that night, I scrolled back through the week, and there she was, gray hoodie, hair tied up, Bean's leash wrapped around her wrist. Allison. She walked slowly down the hall, pretending to check her phone, then stopped outside my door. She looked around, left, right, then bent down. Her hand slid something under my doormat. I froze. I paused the video, zoomed in. It was a folded paper. I ran to the door, heart pounding. Under the mat was a letter, this time not from management, but supposedly from Animal Welfare Services, except it wasn't real. The logo was smudged, the wording awkward, sentences like "We have received report of dog danger, barks and ask for you to cooperate soon." It was fake, sloppy. Someone had printed it off at home. She had made it. I called the police. 2 officers came within an hour, polite, professional, careful not to overstep. I showed them the footage and the fake letter. They confirmed it was fraudulent, said they'd document everything and file a harassment report. "We can't arrest her right now," one officer said, "since there's no direct threat, but if it escalates, we'll have grounds." They were kind but cautious. I could tell they'd seen worse people who'd ignored early signs and ended up hurt. That thought made my skin crawl. The next morning, I went straight to the management office again. I walked in, put my phone on the counter, and played the footage. Allison, plain as day, crouching outside my door. The manager's jaw tightened. "That's her," he said quietly. "That's definitely her." Turns out, the anonymous complaints all came from the same tenant email address, hers. The fake letter was the final straw. They issued her a written warning and told her that if any further incidents occurred, she'd face eviction. When I left the office, I felt relief for the first time in weeks. Relief, but also dread, because now she knew I'd caught her, and I had no idea what she'd do next. For 2 weeks, the building went eerily silent. No post-its, no fake notice, no awkward run-ins by the elevator. Even Bean's high-pitched bark stopped. It was like she'd vanished. I wanted to believe it was over. I tried to. Nick noticed how quiet things were too. "Maybe she got the message," he said one afternoon while Milo tugged on his leash. "Some people only stop when they realize they're being watched." I nodded, but the unease didn't leave, because when something that obsessive just stops, it's rarely the end. It's the pause before something worse. Then one Friday morning I woke up to flashing red and blue lights filtering through my blinds. I rushed to the window. 2 animal control trucks, 1 police car. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my robe, opened the door, and nearly collided with 2 uniformed officers. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "we received a report of a dangerous, aggressive dog in this complex. Are you the owner of a golden retriever named Milo?" My throat went dry. "Yes," I said, "but he's not. He's the friendliest dog on earth." They looked over my shoulder. Milo was standing there, wagging his tail, tongue out, holding his toy duck like an offering. The officer's expression softened instantly. "I can see that," he said, "but we're required to check after a call like this." I let them in. They looked around, checked Milo for any signs of mistreatment. Within minutes, one of them sighed. "We're sorry, ma'am, this doesn't seem right. Whoever reported this, it's clearly false." I showed them the file I'd been keeping, every complaint, every notice, the fake letter, the video footage. They read through it carefully. When they reached the name Allison Carter, the younger officer's eyebrows rose. We've actually dealt with her before, he said quietly. Another complaint disputed her old residence. Same kind of thing, false reports. I felt my stomach turn. They told me to stay put and wait while they spoke to the complex manager. An hour later, shouting echoed down the hallway, muffled, then louder. I opened my door just enough to see. Allison's door was wide open. 2 officers stood outside and she was crying. That same soft, calm voice now broken and sharp. She's lying. She's trying to ruin me. I was just protecting the animals. Her words blurred together, frantic, desperate. One of the officers asked her to calm down. Another told her she was being detained for questioning. And then she did something that froze me. She turned, eyes locking directly on mine, down the hall. For a split second, her face changed. No fear, no guilt, just this cold, flat stare. Then she smiled, and the smile didn't reach her eyes. She was escorted out not long after. Later, management told me what happened. Apparently, she'd sent doctored photos to animal control, photos of Milo tied up and injured, but the timestamps were inconsistent. The metadata showed editing, and one image even included Bean's reflection in the window. She'd used her own dog's photo as part of the fabrication. It backfired spectacularly. The officers traced the submission back to her personal email, the same one used for the anonymous complaints. She was charged with harassment and falsifying a report. Within a month, she'd moved out. The building felt different after that, quieter, lighter. Neighbors I barely knew came up to me in the courtyard to ask if I was okay. Some admitted they'd noticed strange things, 2 lights flickering near my door, little noises at night, but hadn't realized it was connected. Nick still walks Milo on my long workdays, and sometimes we joke about it. If I hadn't said something, he'll say, "You'd be a Netflix documentary by now." We laugh, but there's always that edge of truth behind it, because when someone like Allison gets close to you, learns your habits, your schedule, your vulnerabilities, it's not easy to forget. Every now and then, late at night, Milo will bark softly at the door, just once or twice, not frantic, just aware. I always check the peephole. It's always empty, but sometimes when I step out in the morning, I find small signs: a leaf pressed under the mat, the faint smell of lavender, a smudge on the doorframe, tiny things that might mean nothing or might mean someone was there. Maybe it's paranoia, maybe it's just the memory of being watched too long. Either way, I lock my door twice now, and I never ever ignore a warning again. The end. Please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment on what you think about this tale.